Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Jafar Jafri and I would like to welcome you all to night 4 of the series of Living the Deen of the Masumeen by Shaykh Muzaffar Hyder. As most of you already know, for the next 2 nights, including this one, by the grace of Allah, our scholar Shaykh Muzaffar Hyder will be giving us a lecture at this time wherever you may be. Yesterday he spoke about how easy it is to differentiate between halal and haram music using the party test. Tonight's topic is Patience is a Virtue, the story of Musa and Khidr. And now, without any further ado, I would like to invite Brother Ifad to begin tonight's event with the Holy Quran and Ziyarat Ashura, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون فما يكذبك بعد بالدين أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين. With the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, by the fig and the olive, by Mount Sinai, and by the secure town. We certainly created man in the best of forms, then we relegated him to the lowest of the low. Except those who have faith and do righteous deeds, there will be an everlasting reward for them. So what makes you deny the retribution? Is not Allah the fairest of all judges? زيارة العاشوراء. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوسيين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عزمت الرزية وجلت عزمت مصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعزمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله ممهدين لكم بالتمكين من قتالكم. بريت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية فاقبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجانة، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرو، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنقبت لقتال. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عزم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني مقامه وأكرمني أن يرزقني بطلب ثارك وعمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيحة بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونصب لك الحرب، وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم، وأبرأ إلى الله وإلي رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشيائكم. بريت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وتقربوا إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشيائهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فأسأل الله الذي يكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني بالبراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدقا في الدنيا والآخرة. وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاري وعمام هدى ظاهرا ناطقا بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنا أن يعطيني بمصابيبكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا مصيبتكم، مصيبة الله عزمها وعزم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع أهل السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني من في اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله من صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت بني أمية وابن آكلة أكبر اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعن عابد العابدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن من عذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي من براءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر طابع له ضال على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاحدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى أرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعل الله آخر لحد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم من لعن من وابدأ به أولا ثم عن الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد خابسا ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمر وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عزيم رزيته. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم المرود وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا محجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. اللهم صل على محمد.
Jazakallah, Brother Afad, for the beautiful recitation. Um, Now I would like to invite Brother Mir Abbas Ali to recite As-Salam.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل فرجه. अफसोस नबी ज़ातियों का शाम में जाना सज्जाद से पूछो। अफसोस नबी ज़ातियों का शाम में जाना सज्जाद से पूछो सर नंगे वो माँ बहनों का दरबार में जाना सज्जाद से पूछो छुपती थी नबीज़ादी नबीज़ादी के पीछे किस शर्म हया से और शिम्र का उन बीबियों के नाम बताना सज्जाद से पूछो बैठे हुए दरबार में सब छोटे बड़े थे सादात खड़े थे सरतश्त में रखा हुआ ज़ैनब को दिखाना सज्जाद से पूछो जब दूख्तर शब्बीर ने जिंदा में खजा की आफत की घड़ी थी वो नन्ही सी मैयत बंधे हाथों से उठाना सज्जाद से पूछो जब गुस्ल सकीना को वहां दे चुकी गस्सार था सबका बुरा हाल उस नन्ही सी मैयत के निशान रस्सी के पाना सज्जाद से पूछो थी एक रसन बारा असीरों के गले थे सब झुक के खड़े थे रस्सी में बंधे ज़ैनबे कुलसूम का आना सज्जाद से पूछो रश खा के गिरे सैयदे सज्जाद ज़मी पर बरपा हुआ महशर नेज़े की अनी से उन्हें उस वक्त उठाना सज्जाद से पूछो जब क़ैद सितमगर से छूटे आले पैगंबर एक शोर था घर घर 18 अजीजों की लहद आके बनाना सज्जाद से पूछो अकबर जो गिरे घोड़े से कहने लगे शब्बीर बेटा तेरी तकदीर एक जालिम बेदीन का यूं नेजा लगाना सज्जाद से पूछो अफसोस नबीजादियों का शाम में जाना सज्जाद से पूछो सरनंगे वो माँ बहनों का दरबार में जाना सज्जाद से पूछो अफसोस नबीजादियों का शाम में जाना सज्जाद से पूछो सलवात अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मदिन व आले मुहम्मद व अज्जल फरज.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Jazakallah for once again another beautiful salam. Now, again, before I ask the Shaykh to begin the lecture, I would like to share a really cool analogy I came across. And I apologize if it gets a bit too deep, but it was basically about the relationship of a coach and the player he coaches. And the example is of a table tennis coach. And to understand that, we have to understand what a coach is. And a coach is someone who always shows up for practice before you, someone who doesn't benefit from your achievements, someone who will only focus on your weak points to make you better and will help you to become the perfect player. And he understands that if your right shot is better, then it is your left shot that he will work on. And during the day, if he's going to throw 100 balls at you at practice, it's not going to be 50-50 left and right because he knows your left is weaker and he cares for you. And because of that, he will give you, let's say, 80 balls on your left and 20 on your right. And that is kind of, in a very basic way, how our relationship with Allah works. Like, he's always there before us. And by that, I mean he's always there. He doesn't benefit from you or me worshipping him or passing our tests. It is us who benefit. He will test you on your weak points, not only your strong points. And when he gives you tests more on your weaker side, it's not because he hates you, it's because he loves you. And someone really great once said to me that growth isn't something instant, it's a continuous process till the day we die, unless you're infallible, of course. And I always thought to myself, what does that mean and why is that the case? And if you go into the depths of understanding that, a lot of us think that perfection is a destination, but it's not really a destination, it's more of a path that has no shortcuts. And think of it like rock climbing. You can't get to the top without using all the rocks provided. But when you take that first step towards Allah, He will highlight the next four rocks for you. And this mountain we are all climbing, and we all will keep climbing, inshallah, until the day we die. And every day is a potential rock. Whether you grab on or not is up to you. And whether Allah lets you grab on or not is up to Him. If it wasn't for Allah, then there would be no mountain, there would be no rocks. And this is something to really think about. And we should look at everything as a potential rock that will bring you closer to Allah, inshallah. And it's up to you to grab on or not. Now, without any further ado, I would like to invite the Shaykh to begin the lecture and give us all knowledge, inshallah.
السلام عليكم.
Wa alaikum assalam.
If I could ask everybody to give Surah Fatiha for all the marhumin, including Sayyid Baqir Musavi, Ibn Sayyid Razi Musavi, and Abida Abid bint Ja'far Ali Khan. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث صدق الله العلي العظيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Today, the subject that we're going to be discussing is about patience and how patience is a virtue. And we're going to do this through exploring the story of Musa and Khidr. Okay, in the Quran, this is one of my favorite stories in the Quran. It is absolutely fascinating. But before we start, I need to give you a word of caution, a little bit of a warning. This lecture may actually raise more questions than it answers. And that's okay, because part of the journey is to know that we don't know. All right, and that is what this story really highlights for us, how little we actually know. Okay, now the Surah Kahf, right, the story that we're discussing, this story between Musa and Khizr, you'll find it in Surah Kahf. Okay, and if you go to the tafasir and the exegesis on this chapter of the Quran, they explain that it is all about the end times. Okay, and it's even recommended at least once a day to recite at least the first verse and the last verse. And it's through this surah that we can be helped in recognizing the Dajjal and the Mahdi. Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajah sharif. I'm really glad that our dear host, Brother Ja'far, started by talking about the coach and the importance of a coach, because that is one of the central themes of the story we're going to be discussing today. Okay, because Khizr is like unto Musa, like a kind of a coach. Okay, and I'd like everybody to recognize that we're going through a journey right now. All right, it is a journey of life, and our coach and our teacher is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The question is, are we going to have patience to see what the coach is going to teach us? Now, as I said, there's lots of questions that may be raised in due course, but I'd like us to put a few things aside, because there's lots of discussions about infallibility. If Musa was a prophet, didn't he know these things? Does this mean that he's not infallible? And all these kinds of discussions. I want to, just for the sake of this discussion, inshallah, let's put these things aside. And for the sake of this discussion, I'd like everybody just to imagine for a moment, for the sake of this lecture, and for the sake of us exploring this theme, to just imagine for a moment that we are Musa. One of the beautiful, and this is one of the reasons why Musa alayhi salam is my favorite prophet. After the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, it's Prophet Musa. He is the most mentioned prophet in the entire Quran. Right? There's no other prophet who's mentioned more than Prophet Musa. And there's something unique and special about him. You see, He is Kalam Allah, which means that he spoke to Allah. Does that mean that other prophets didn't speak to Allah? No, no, no. Other prophets also spoke to Allah. But Musa had a special trait about him. He would speak to Allah in a way that it's almost as though he's asking those questions that are on the minds of humanity. And he's asking on behalf of all of us so that we can all get an answer from it. I'll give you an example. Allah says to Musa, وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا Musa? What is this in your hand, O Musa? Musa doesn't just say, this is my staff, full stop. No, he says, this is my staff. I lean on it and I beat the leaves away and I make a path for it, for my sheep, and I guide my sheep. And this do it, I do this with it, I do that with it. In one of the ahadith, he's actually asked, Ya Musa, why did you, when you were speaking to Allah, why did you say, Allah knows? So why are you saying all these things to him? The reply of Musa is beautiful. He says, it's because it's the first time I was speaking with my Lord directly. And I wanted that opportunity to say more and more to him. Okay, this is Musa. Now, in the story of Musa and Khizr, I want us to put ourselves into the shoes of Musa and think of Khizr as the Imam of the time. Imagine that Khizr is the Imam of the time, okay? Because Khizr is a very special and unique character as well, personality as well. Khizr, similar to Imam Zaman, has been granted long life. He's alive today even, okay? And just like Imam Zaman, he's in a kind of ghaiba. Masjid al-Jamkaran, one of the witnesses of why that masjid was actually built, saw Khizr sitting in that place, surrounded by a company of very pious looking individuals, and Imam Zaman was among them as well. And Khidr was the one who was sat there. And then they built the great Masjid of Jamkaran. Okay. But anyway, let's come to the story now. I want to first go through the story, and then we're going to go through the stages of this story and contemplate over it. I'm often telling the youths, don't just read the Quran, visualize it. My teachers have also told me, don't just read the Quran, think about it, pause, reflect. So much of the Quran is a world waiting for us to just open it up and see what's inside. So first, let's go through the story. Musa is commanded by Allah to seek out somebody who has been given a unique relationship with Allah. He's been bestowed with something very special. Musa's searching for him. He finally finds him. And this person, his name isn't mentioned in the Quran, but we know him to be Khidr. Some of the tafsirs in this place, they say that, well, no, actually Khidr doesn't exist. It's just a metaphor, okay? And it's a metaphor for Allah's kind of spirit being on earth and doing certain things. But the majority of the exegesis, the majority of our scholars say, no, Khidr was a human being, he was a real person, okay? And there are ahadith to back this up, which inshallah we can talk about another time. But the bottom line is, Musa finds him and he says, I want to follow you. Let me follow you. I just want to shadow you and see what you do. What does Khidr say to him? He says, you won't be able to be patient with me. وَكَيْفَ تَصْبِرُ عَلَى مَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ خُبْرًا. And how will you be able to be patient upon that which you have no knowledge of, which you haven't been bestowed with knowledge about? How can you be patient about it? Musa says, no, let me follow you. قَالَ سَتَجِدُونِ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ صَابِرًا. He says, inshallah, you'll find me patient. Just let me follow you. I want to see what you do. I want to learn from it. Khidr says to him, okay, but on one condition, don't question my lead. Whatever you see me do, don't ask me about it until I explain it to you. Musa agrees. They go on their journey. As they go on their journey, Khidr he puts a hole into a boat. They see a boat there. He makes a hole in the boat. He makes a hole in the boat. Musa says, what are you doing? You can't. What are you doing? You can't. Are you trying to drown the inmates of this boat? You can't be doing this. This This is damaging public property. I'm paraphrasing. But he is shocked at this. And he says, you can't be... Khidr says, didn't I say not to question my lead? And he says, what is going... You can't just kill a man. You can't just kill a random kid. That's crazy, man. That's just... I can't stay silent at this. Khidr says, didn't I tell you? Oh, I've been informed that I froze. So first, Khidr makes a hole in the boat. All right, I've just been told that I froze for a moment, so I'm just going to repeat the last phrase. Khidr makes a hole in the boat. Musa objects and says, why did you make a hole in the boat? Are you trying to drown its inmates? Khidr says, didn't I say not to question me until I explain? Musa says, okay. Then they go to the next place and Khidr slays a boy. He slays a young boy, right? And Musa says, oh, you just killed somebody. This is just, what are you doing? This is just madness, okay? Paraphrasing again, guys, right? Then Khidr says, if you question me again, we're going to part ways. Musa says, okay, don't blame me for what I forgot. Let's continue. I'll try not to question you next time. They go to a place where there's a people, it's a town, it's a city, it's some sort of place, right? Khidr asks those people, Khidr and Musa, you can imagine these two pious individuals, their faces shining with nur. They go to these individuals and they say, ask them for food. But those people don't give them any food. They don't give them any hospitalities. They don't look after them. They treat them really bad. While they're leaving that place, Khidr sees that there's a wall and that wall is about to collapse. It's like all rotten, it's old, it's breaking down. Khidr says, right, we're going to fix this wall now. They fix the wall. They go through all this effort. Musa and Khidr, they're building this wall. They make it all perfect. Musa's trying to stay silent, but then he says, you know, we could have asked them for some money for doing all this manual labor. Right? We could have asked them for a wage for doing this work for them. Oh, I don't know why we're fixing their wall for them. Khidr at this point says, هَذَا فِرَاقُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنِكَ. This is a parting between you and me. Now I'm going to explain to you what it was upon which you could not have patience. I'm going to explain to you why I did these actions. The first thing, why did I make a hole in the boat? He explains that there was a tyrannical king coming by, okay? And he was seizing everybody's boats. He was just taking them by force. But when he would see that this boat has a hole in it, he would leave the boat. He'd say, it's got a hole in it, forget about it. And he left it. That was the boat. As for the boy who I slew, Allah, we wished to replace him with somebody better, somebody more pure, somebody who's more pious and closer to Allah. So we took his life away and we replaced the child with somebody better. As for the wall, even though those people were not appreciating us, that's okay. The wall was hiding a treasure. And there were 2 orphans in that city. And their father had been a very pious, believing man. We wished that the children would grow up. And when they finally grow up and become of age, they will discover that inheritance of theirs, that treasure. And Khidr tells Musa, these were the reasons and the wisdoms behind why I did those actions. And that's the end of the story, as per the Quran. Obviously, the ahadith explain this in greater detail, but when it comes to the Quran, that's it. It leaves you on a cliffhanger. It leaves you thinking, like, what? It starts to talk about Dhul Qarnayn, and you're like, whoa, what did I just read? Why did that just happen? Now let's go through these stories and explore just how much they can help us to recognize the realities all around us, okay, and how much they can broaden our horizons. There are 4 basic points. The first point is you can't be patient on that which you don't know. The second one is about the boat. The third one is about the boy being slain. And the fourth one is about the wall. Let's go to the first point, okay? Khizr says, وَكَيْفَ تَصْبِرُ عَلَى مَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ خُبْرًا. How can you be patient upon that which you have no knowledge? How can you be patient about it? I am going to share, inshallah, a mind-blowing, mind-boggling, absolutely perspective-changing hadith with you in a moment. Okay, but before I share that mind-blowing hadith with you, there's a few points I want to give you. What's the main point that we gain from this? The idea that you can't be patient on what you don't know. It's the idea that you don't know what's around the corner. You never know what's right around the corner to you, okay? You could be, imagine a person walking down the street. At the end of the street, when he turns the corner, he's going to see a big purple dinosaur. A big purple dinosaur is going to be standing there to greet him. But he knows nothing about it, right? How is he living his life before he gets to that point? Or there's a whole group of people, they're going to go surprise and give him 1 billion gold pieces. It's going to change his life forever. At the time where he's walking, because he has no idea about what's right around the corner, he's just miserable. I don't know. I don't know what he's going through his mind. It doesn't matter. He doesn't realize what's right around the corner. The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked, "What is faith?" You know what he said? In one word, he replied in one word. He said, "Patience." That's it. Patience. That is faith. Subhanallah. You see, patience, dear brothers and sisters, dear respected elders, is the key. Okay, patience, more specifically, patience on that which you don't know is the key to your success in this life and the hereafter. If you only trusted Allah and realized, I don't know what's around the corner from me, your entire perspective, your behavior would change completely. If, for example, you knew that when you're praying, the angels are looking down upon you in the best of ways, and they're saying, wow, it would change the way that you pray. One of the hadith that we have, it says, worship Allah as though you see Him. It's because there are veils in front of us. It's because we don't know what bounties are waiting for us in the hereafter. It's because we haven't seen paradise. We don't know about it, that we fail to be patient in regards to it. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, there are 5 things that require your greatest anxiety to acquire them. This is a hadith that I often share with the youths because it can truly change the way that we live our lives. Number 1, have hope only in Allah. Why are you having hope in your friends or in your family members or in your father or your mother or your aunties or your uncles or the company that you work for or the school or the education system or anything like that? Why? Imam Ali is saying, have hope in none of those things, only in Allah. Number 2, be afraid of nothing but sins. Why are we spending our time being afraid of this person and that person and what they will think or what the Taghut will do if we speak against them? Why? Imam Ali is saying, be afraid of nothing except committing sins, because sins are the only real thing which have a detriment to our souls. The third thing, if you don't know a thing, never feel ashamed to admit ignorance. How many problems would be solved if we just admitted, I don't know? And in this context, we don't know what's around the corner. So why are we panicking? We never know what tomorrow holds. The fourth thing, if you do not know a thing, never feel ashamed to learn it. Again, bounce it off the Quran. Think about this. What the Quran is telling us. Musa is a prophet, and yet he's willing to shadow this old man called Khidr and see what he has in store for him and learn from him. Learning never stops. From the cradle to the grave, the Holy Prophet has taught us to gain knowledge. The fifth and final thing, and this is the most important and most central point that Imam Ali says, which is relevant to this discussion, he says, acquire patience, because its relation to true faith is like that of a head to a body. A body cannot survive. It won't survive without a head. Similarly, true faith cannot exist. It will not survive without patience. Patience is the key, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders. That's what it's all about. Now, think about what we're doing. When it comes to applying for our jobs, we apply for 1 job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs. We get rejected 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Then we just settle down. We're like, I give up. Why do we give up? We don't know. It might have been the 7th time. It might have been the 8th time doing our driving test. We keep failing. And then because of those failures, we do not have patience to try again. It's a misconception if we think patience is to just sit back, Allah will throw food into my mouth. No, we have to work for it. Patience is about trying every time you fall. Patience is about realizing that we fall so that we can learn to pick ourselves back up. There was a scholar, he sat in a masjid, he was feeling really down because he couldn't handle the pressures of the studies of Hausa, okay? And he thought, I'm never going to reach that level where I can actually acquire that level of knowledge. I'm just never going to do it. He sits in the masjid, he sees a little insect. It climbs up the pillar, then it falls down. Then it climbs up the pillar, then it falls down. Then it gets a little bit further, then it falls down. He sees this creature do this 50 times. And then something clicks inside this scholar and he realizes, I can do it. I just need to keep trying, because eventually that insect got to its destination. There's another scholar, he gets mocked as well because he wasn't able to study as well as he could. And his other classmates, Hausa studies are difficult. Now that I'm here, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, don't take Hausa studies lightly. There are doctors, there are lawyers, there are engineers who are studying. They're finding it difficult too. Okay, so this scholar, he goes to a cave, he isolates himself, and he sees that there is stone and there's a hole going down. And he sees that from the ceiling, there is a bit of water dripping, drip, drip, drip. And he realizes that water has accomplished this over stone, over time. And this scholar goes on to be one of the great scholars of our time. The point here is we need to keep trying. Dear brothers and sisters, we need to be patient. For example, in small things like we're waiting for a spouse. We send out a rishta, we send out another one, another proposal here, another proposal. I'm getting rejected from everywhere. Hey, don't worry, keep trying. We have to start believing that Allah is the Raziq. He is the one who provides our sustenance. He is the one who is destined for us, our spouses. We just need to keep trying and stepping in that direction. How many times have you been looking for a product in a shop, right? You've been looking for this product everywhere, right? But you've been impatient. And so you go and buy it. It could be a pair of shoes that you were really looking for, or a blender, I don't know, whatever it was. And then as soon as you come out of that shop, ta-da, you've seen that same product is everywhere and it's half price. And you're like, why did this just happen? Patience. The thing that is destined for us will find us. We just have to demonstrate that little bit of patience. I'm telling you, dear brothers and sisters, Allah loves you so much. He is waiting for an opportunity to bestow such great bounties upon you and to give you so many rewards. All he's waiting for you to do is just show that little bit of patience and he'll give it to you. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, the Holy Prophet, look at the patience of the Ahlul Bayt. They teach us, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he teaches us that one who is patient while sick, Allah rewards him with the reward of 1,000 martyrs. We can't imagine what that actually means. The Prophet says that patience is satisfaction. Okay. The Ayatul Bahjat also, there was a person who came, and this person, he was going through some sort of financial stress. And so he says, I'm going to send a letter to Imam Zaman, right? I'm going to put this letter into some water for 40 days. I'm going to send it to Imam Zaman. On the 40th day, he doesn't even realize that it's the 40th day. And yet he hears a voice from behind him calling out his name. He tries to convince himself that he's imagining it, but he realized he's not imagining it. It was Imam Zaman. And he says to him, do you really think that we are unaware of your circumstances? Do you really think that the Imam of the time doesn't know what you're going through, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders? The Imam of the time has been bestowed with the gifts and the bounties of the prophets and Imams of the past, where they had this level of foresight. They know what we're going through. They are the Ahlul Bayt and the Wali of Allah on earth. Now, as I promised, I know I said to you that I'm going to give you that mind-blowing hadith. Here it is. Imam Sadiq says, we are patient, i.e. the Ahlul Bayt, we are patient, the Imams, we're patient, but وَشِيعَتُنَا أَصْبِرُ مِنَّا, and our Shi'as are even more patient than us. Subhanallah. Somebody asked the Imam, how is it possible that your Shi'as are even more patient than you? He says, because we are patient upon that which we know, whereas our Shi'as, they are patient upon that which they don't know. If that's not a mind-blowing hadith that changes your perspective on so many different things, I don't know what is. Okay, so many of us have this sentiment when we're going through the life and we're trying to serve the cause. We think to ourselves, well, it's easy for the Imam. He knows what's going on. He knows what's going to happen. He knows probably when the zuhur is going to happen. I'm the one who's trapped here. I'm the one who's limited. I'm the one who doesn't know what's going on. The first thing we need to remember is, look, the burdens of the Imam are far greater than all the human race put together. It's sometimes much more difficult to know and have the burden of the knowledge. Remember that. The second thing is, there is a point of sympathy with this sentiment for us in the words of the infallible Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, where he says that our Shi'as are more patient than even themselves. Why? Because they are patient upon which they do not know. Go back now to the Quran. What does Khidr say to Musa? وَكَيْفَ تَصْبِرُ عَلَى مَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ خُبْرًا. How will you be patient upon that which you have not been given knowledge? That's the first point. Now let's come to the second point. The boat, all right? The boat has a hole in it. Khidr makes a hole in the boat. And Musa objects. He says, why are you doing this? The point that I want us to think about here is, sometimes, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, your boat will have a hole in it. Subhanallah, look at how this whole story is about teaching us how to have patience and helping us to recognize that there truly is a wisdom behind all things. You might have tried to start a new business, or you might be starting a new family or a new project, or traveling, or trying to publish a book, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out. Are you going to be patient in this regard or not? That's the test. Are you going to recognize that sometimes your boat is just going to have a hole in it? You know, some people in their studies, or they want to go and buy a new car or a new house, they want to start a new mission, but for whatever reason, it fails. It doesn't start up. Sometimes your boat is gonna have a hole in it. Are you recognizing that reality? What is the wisdom behind it? Khidr explains in the story that there was a tyrant coming along and he was seizing all the boats. But when he saw that it has a hole in it, he left it alone. Dear brothers and sisters, your enemy is out there. There are people who have an evil eye over you. There are people out there who will envy you. There are jinns, shaitan himself. He hates to see you have any sort of success. If you're trying to do something, but it doesn't work out, it could be because Allah is protecting you from those enemies. And these are all dunyawi examples, right? But sometimes we have a frustration in terms of the deen. Sometimes, and this is a genuine frustration which a lot of the youths and a lot of those who have, understood some things have gotten at, where they're just frustrated. Why is the religion in such shambles? Why are people so confused about basic things? Why is Islam in such a horrible state, for example, in the West or in the East, wherever it is? Why? Why, for instance, have certain scholars, they brought Islam, but they brought it with all these corruptions, and they've spread all these misconceptions, and they've told people all these superstitious things, and people are confused out of their heads about Islam now. It's because there's a hole in that boat too. Isn't the Ahlul Bayt, what are they described as? Safinatun Najat, the boat, the ship of salvation. Safina is the same word that Khizr uses in the Quran. Safina is what has a hole in it. It could be that the school of thought of Shia Islam or Islam in general has a flaw in it when it is introduced into a society. But even that flaw, let me tell you this, is a blessing for us. Let me tell you why. If pure Islam had gone to the West, the tyrant would have snubbed it out from day one. He would have destroyed it from day one. He would have seized that boat from day one. It would have not been even given a chance to flourish in the West. For instance, under the Taghut or in the East, okay? It's because the Taghut saw it and he saw that, oh, look, they're fighting amongst themselves. Oh, look, they're confused. They're saying sorts of weird things and all of these kinds of things. When the tyrant saw those things, he said, this boat, it's not going to help them. I'll just leave it. You see, when the next generation comes, it's easy to fix a hole in a boat. It's difficult to bring a whole boat, but it's easy to fix the holes. Okay, so even in the flaws that we see in people's religions, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, sometimes we need to understand that even that has a wisdom behind it. Okay, so that's the boat. Now let's go to the boy who is killed. What's this all about? How can, what is Allah trying to show us here? The point that I want us to focus on in this is this. Sometimes you will lose those who are dear to you. This is a reality of life. Sometimes you will lose family members, especially now as coronavirus is like rearing its ugly head. This reality is hitting us much harder. We're actually realizing just how close it is. Our friends, sometimes they will lead us. Our comrades, sometimes we will lose a scholar who we love and are attached to. Sometimes it's a child in the family. Sometimes it's through an accident. Sometimes it's through war. Sometimes it's through famine. Sometimes you will lose those who are dear to you. The test is whether you are going to be patient. How are you going to be patient? وَكَيْفَ تَصْبِرُ عَلَى مَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ خُبْرًا? How are you going to be patient? Don't you realize Allah is going to replace that pain that you have in your heart with something far better? This is the key. Okay, Allah is going to replace that with something better. And a way that we can understand this is, look, it's through the great shuhada. How many shuhada, how many martyrs have we given for the sake of Islam? And I want to take us now for a moment back to the time of Imam Khomeini. Take us back to the time of Imam Khomeini, back to the time of the sacred defense. 1979, the Islamic Revolution takes place. What happens? Saddam Hussein, one of the most terrible tyrants of the time, used to burn people in acid. He is backed by America and by Britain and by even Russia, France, Germany, pumping Saddam Hussein with chemical weapons, with intelligence, with money, with all sorts of weaponry and artillery to attack and kill the Shias and to slay the Iranians and to completely bombard them and annihilate them. What do these Iranians do at that time? They fight back. They fight back so well for 8 years under these conditions. Dear brothers and sisters, remember, the Iranians back then, the Shah had put them in such a bad condition, they could not even produce their own barbed wire. Can you imagine these villagers, these backward people who didn't even have proper weapons, fighting back against pretty much the entire world? How were they able to overcome? They recognized, as the Quran teaches us, كَم مِّن فِئَةٍ قَلِيلَةٍ غَلَبَتْ فِئَةً كَثِيرَةً بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. How many times the Quran teaches us, how many times has a small group defeated a great group with the permission of Allah? And this is what they did, and they overcame the enemies. But in this process, dear brothers and sisters, they gave many shuhada. There are graveyards full of people, Shias, Muslims, who gave their lives bringing about Islam. Don't think that we would be talking today about Islam. Don't think that our daughters would be wearing a hijab that the Quran and the translations of the Quran and all of these books from Antarian publications would have reached us, and we would have any sort of understanding of the religion if it weren't for the sacrifices of those brave souls. But there was a scholar at that time, a very old scholar, and he was frowning. They had victory. They overcame the enemies. But this old scholar, he was frowning. He was sad. They asked him, why are you upset? Why are you sad? He said, because all the good have now gone. All those pious people who truly believed, they've given their lives in the way of Allah. They've all been shaheed. All that is left now are those who don't really believe. All right, there's very few now who believe, and they're going to take over the narrative. They're going to, make everything spoiled. Here comes the story of Khizr. Allah is saying that we will replace them with something better. Subhanallah. And today, Imam Khamenei is saying, do you think that this generation that we have today is better or worse than the generation we had before? Imam Khamenei explains to us that no, this generation is even better than the generation we had in the past. Against all odds, Allah makes it happen. And there is evidences for this. Okay, and we're going to talk about those inshallah in a moment. But here's the point, dear brothers and sisters. Sometimes you may lose something, but Allah will replace it with something better. Now that's the killing of that boy. But now the killing of that pure soul. Now let's come to the wall, the final test. What is the final test? Khidr builds this wall. Okay, and Musa says, well, why don't we take money for it? The first thing we learn from this is the effort. When we put efforts into an Islamic cause, it's not necessary that we always have to ask for money for it. Unfortunately, one of the biggest plagues that has struck the Muslim Ummah is that we think that whenever we do an Islamic effort, we need to take a wage for it. No, that's not the case. It's good to do things for free, truly fi sabilillah sometimes. Okay, that's the first thing, but it's deeper than that. What is a wall? A wall is something that you build to defend. It's a defense, okay? Either from the wind or from wild animals or from the cold or from invading enemies. That's what a wall really represents. And the point I want us to focus on here, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, is your efforts are not wasted. Okay, don't think that your efforts are in vain. No, it's on the contrary. Quite on the contrary. Allah will make your efforts be for the cause. The Quran teaches us, in tansurullaha yansurukum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum. If you help Allah, He will help you and He will make firm your feet. Okay. Patience, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, is never to just be patient, just sit there. This is a big misconception that we have. No, Imam Khamenei explains, patience is to be in the battlefield. Patience is to be facing against the enemies, no matter what they throw at you. Patience is to build that wall, even if people don't appreciate you. And this is the central point, okay? Because the story in the Quran, what is it showing us? They didn't even give food to Musa and Khizr. They didn't appreciate anything Musa and Khizr. Can you imagine these great personalities? One is a prophet and one is Khizr. It's like, whoa. You know, they didn't even give them hospitality. Right? Sometimes you will not be appreciated. Dear mothers, the efforts that you make, most of the time they will not be appreciated. All right. And sometimes you will spend your efforts defending the rights of others, whether you're protecting the iman of people, the scholars, the righteous scholars and the researchers who are out there. Look at what their lives were spent at. They spent their lives trying to build that wall, trying to defend the next generation, but nobody appreciated them. Okay, Allama Tabatabai comes to mind. Allama, he wrote Mizan, Tafsir al-Mizan, which is one of the greatest legacies that we have today, which does tafsir of the Quran through the Quran. Did you know that in his lifetime, he wasn't appreciated? He was in fact blocked and barred, and they said, don't even attend his classes. It's only after he passed away that people start to appreciate him. And this is the point. Many people are only appreciated after they leave. How sad is that? Look at Imam Ali alayhi salam. Was he appreciated in his lifetime? Those same people who abandoned him in his lifetime, after he passed away, they said, oh, I love Imam Ali. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, in his lifetime, they refused and they said, we're too lazy, we don't want to fight. After he passes away, they say, we love him, we love him, we love him. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, same thing. Every Imam, it's the same thing. All right, and this has continued. How many great personalities do we have alive today? Are we appreciating them? What does the Quran tell us about this, about the building of that wall? He tells us that there are two orphans who will inherit the treasure. They will inherit it. They will, even if the people who are alive right now, they won't appreciate it. There are two orphans in the city. They will inherit the treasure that is behind that wall. They will come, they will appreciate it. And this is the premise, and this is the general gist of life, the universe and everything. This is the pattern of the universe. This is the way it goes. Now, I want to take you to Palestine. Why Palestine? Palestine has been highlighted for us as one of the core and central, most relevant and most important issues of today by the leader, even by Ayatollah Sistani. Don't think that this is limited to Imam Khamenei. No, all the greats of today are pointing at Palestine. Go and read the ahadith. Since we're on the subject of Surah Kahf and we're talking about the end times, it is everything to do with Palestine, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders. Don't forget, it is Isa alayhi salam that we are waiting for. Al-Quds is the city where Isa alayhi salam will pray behind Imam Mahdi ajjalallahu ta'ala farajah sharif. Everything to do with the Dajjal and Imam Zaman is to do with Al-Quds. It is our first Qibla. It is the place where we faced before the Kaaba. Okay? It is our first Qibla. Never, ever, ever let anybody turn our attention away from Palestine even for a moment, because in a moment that's all it takes. A moment is all it takes. They've distracted us and they have hijacked the entire ummah through the occupation of that sacred land. Okay, Palestine is important, but you'll notice one of the arguments that people use in order to misguide people from Palestine is they say, well, these people are Wahhabis. These people are Nasibis. They hate the Ahlul Bayt. Why should we defend them? This is their mentality, not the mentality of the Ahlul Bayt, not the mentality of the Shi'as, not the mentality of Islam or the Quran. Look at what Khidr is teaching us. We are going to build that wall, which is a sign of defense, whether we are appreciated or not. And today, because of the efforts made by the resistance camp, you'll notice that the youths of Palestine are now turning and inclining towards Iran, and they're recognizing that Iran and the Shias and those Sunnis as well, Muslims who are on the side of the resistance, are those who are truly following Islam. Subhanallah. I want to take you now to Syria. Syria, because I have a brother, a friend, a dear friend of mine. He was one of those who actually went to Syria. Remember how I said that Imam Khamenei said that this generation is better than the generation before? It's because of this. Look at how many people signed up, willing to go and defend the shrine of our great lady, Sayyida Zainab in Syria. They lined up to the point where they had to tell them, go home, we don't have space anymore. There are too many believers who are going to fight against Daesh, too many believers who are going to slay ISIS and to defend the lands of the Muslims. I want to tell you what happened. And this is something that I heard firsthand from a brother who is absolutely trustworthy. He went to Syria and he witnessed this with his own eyes. They go to a place where the houses were ruined. Okay, one of these men, he comes out and he's not a Shia. Okay, he was a Wahhabi. He comes out, he is weeping. His house has been destroyed. And he sees that my friend and the IRGC, the Quds force, those who are the part of the Revolutionary Guard, they're coming out. and he starts to weep. He takes my friend's hand and he kisses it. And he says, this is what he said. He said, I was raised to hate Shi'as. I was raised to despise Shi'as and to curse its Shi'as. And now I see that you have come to our defense, while all those who claim to be Sunnis did not. This is the reality, okay? And there were houses of widows, the wives of ISIS, okay? Wives of ISIS members, and the ISIS members had been killed by our people, okay? And these women now became completely afraid. They're like, oh my God, the Iranian army, the army of these Shias are now coming in. These women became terrified. They thought to themselves, what are they going to do with us? You know what the IRGC did? They knocked on the doors. They left sacks of rice on the ground and they left. And when these widows opened up the doors, they saw that there were sacks of rice there for them to eat. Okay, people will criticize Iran. They will criticize and not appreciate what the resistance faction has done, definitely. But there are certainly orphans who will be raised now, and they will inherit the gold. They will inherit the treasure. They will recognize the truth. The generation that is coming is a generation whose eyes are open. Dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to end on this note when it comes to this discussion. Always remember, there is a wisdom and a hikmah behind everything that Allah does. And life is a choice. That's all it is. It's a choice between recognizing that wisdom, being patient upon what we do not know, and not. All right? And the choice really is yours. Now, before we go to our masa'ib, and our masa'ib today is about a person who emanates patience, a person who, if you just look at the things that he did, completely reflect what patience actually means. Imam Sajjad. And the first thing I'd like to say about Imam Sajjad alayhi salam is look at the life that he led. It is a complete misconception if we just think of him as completely madloom and he never fought against the enemies and he never did anything except weep. No, this is a gross misconception. And if Allah ever gives us the tawfiq, inshallah, we'll talk about the life of Imam Sajjad and what he did. He was actively confronting the tyrant of his time. He confronted Yazid in the court of Yazid, and thereafter he was actively building the grounds for the next generation and confronting the Abbasids and whoever the tyrant of the time is. And I'd like to ask you a question. Why do you think the enemies poisoned Imam Sajjad alayhi salam? If he was passive in the face of the Taghut, and if he was not patiently fighting against the Taghut, why do you think it was so necessary for them to assassinate him? And I'd like to take you now to Karbala. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. When it comes to patience, can we think of a better example than Karbala and the great shaheeds of Karbala when they were giving their all in Karbala? I want to take you back now to that land of pain. It is said that when the cry of Hussein filled the air and he cried out, Hal min nasirin yansurni? Is there anybody to aid me? It is said that from the tent of Imam Sajjad, there was a sound heard, and when they went there, they saw that Imam Sajjad, in that state of illness which had taken over him, in that feverish attempt, he was crawling on the ground to try to aid the Imam of the time. Now we go to Kufa. Imam is chained, he is shackled. They say there were chains on his hands, there were chains on his ankles, and there is a chain around his neck. And he would be weeping, and the chains would be cutting into his sides, and they would be rubbing against his skin. I want to imagine now Imam Sajjad. All around him are the women of the Ahlul Bayt, and he sees the heads upon the spears, and he must be thinking to himself, how he wished he could have helped his uncle Abbas. And he's thinking to himself that when the mashk of Abbas was cut, and when Abbas was alone trying to bring water to the camp and the thirsty children, Imam Zainul Abidin is wishing that he had been able to help Abbas. And when he sees the head of Ali al-Akbar, he says, oh my brother, if only I had been shaheed alongside you, if only I had been able to help you. And then he sees Ali al-Asghar, and he thinks, if only I could have held you in my arms, my brother, one last time. And then he sees the head of Hussein, and he knows that he would have given everything to serve the cause of Hussein, but he was not able to. What is this patience, oh Sajjad, that you are able to endure not being able to help the Imam of your time, that you are able to endure this sickness and understand that Allah has placed a wisdom even in this. But shall I tell you what is the worst thing for Imam Sajjad? What is the most difficult thing for Imam Sajjad as he is dragged through the streets of Kufa? I can't tell you what must have been more painful for Sajjad. Was it that moment where he turned and he saw the face of Zakina, and she has a bruise on her blessed face for where Shimmer and the enemies have slapped her, and he knows that he is completely helpless to retaliate against them. Or maybe it is when he sees that the daughters of Hussein, their earrings are snatched and they are looted, and Sajjad is unable to help. He's unable to do anything to stop them. When their chadars are snatched right in front of his eyes, he is not able to do anything. I don't know what must have been more difficult. Imam Sajjad, he says to the people of Kufa, oh people, I am the son of Hussein. I am the son of the man whose sanctity has been violated, whose wealth has been plundered, whose children have been seized. I am the son of the one who was slain in the worst manner. I am the son of Hussein. In the name of Allah, did you not write to my father and then deceive him? Did you not swear allegiance to him, then fought against him? May you be ruined for what you have committed against your own souls, and because of your corrupted ideologies. Through what eyes will you look at the messenger of Allah on the day of judgment when he says to you, you killed my progeny, you violated my sanctity, so you do not belong to my ummah this day. Well, just one last point. It is said that when Imam Sajjad, when he was martyred, there were 100 families, or maybe more, who found out that Imam Sajjad was the one who was providing food for them. For just like Imam Ali, Imam Sajjad would carry food on his back and go and feed the people, and he would cover his face so that nobody would recognize him. It was only after he died, only after the enemy slew him, that these families found out that it was in fact Imam Zain al-Abidin who had been feeding them. Oh, Imam, why did you feed these people? Why did you feed these same people who had the opportunity to help Hussein? And yet they did not help him. Oh, Imam, why did you give water to these people? How did they deserve it when they did not help your father Hussein get water in Karbala? Oh Allah, oh Imam, why did you clothe these people when these same people betrayed your mom? And your Imam was attacked and his clothes were snatched in Karbala. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. I'd like us all to raise our hands in dua. Oh Allah, help us to recognize that all things are in Allah's hands. Oh Allah, help us to recognize and have patience to do what needs to be done, even if nobody appreciates it. Oh Allah, help us to have patience in the true sense of the word. Help us to have the patience of a true slave and true Shia of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Oh Allah, help us to be the best and have the best of this life and the hereafter. Oh Allah, help us to become those true servants and soldiers of Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Allahumma كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا معينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا.
तो सुनाता है ये सर किसका है सूरह तो सुनाता है ये सर किसका है उन आँखों से बहाता है उन आँखों से बहाता है ये सर किसका है सूरह तो सुनाता है ये सर किसका है सूरह कहफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है चलते चलते जो सकीना कहीं गिर जाती है चलते जो सकीना कहीं गिर जाती है खुद को नेज़े से गिराता है खुद को नेज़े से गिराता है ये सर किसका है सूरह कहफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है सूरह कहफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है जिस तरफ जाता है बाजार में सर अकबर का जिस तरफ जाता है बाजार में सर अकबर का उस तरफ देखता जाता है, देखता जाता है, ये सर किसका है, सूरह कैफ सुनाता है, ये सर किसका है, सूरह कैफ सुनाता है, ये सर किसका है। जब भी दाखिल किसी बाजार में होते हैं गरम, जब भी दाखिल किसी बाजार में होते हैं हरम, पहले पत्थर यही खाता है, पहला पत्थर यही खाता है, ये सर किसका है, सूरह कैफ सुनाता है, ये सर किसका है। रात होती है तो मासूम सी एक बच्ची को, रात होती है तो मासूम सी एक बच्ची को, लोरी नेज़े से सुनाता है, लोरी नेज़े से सुनाता है, ये सर किसका है, सूरह कैफ सुनाता है, ये सर किसका है। ये समा काश न देखे कोई ख्वार इसकी, ये समा काश न देखे कोई ख्वार इसकी, शिम्र जुल्फों से उठाता है, शिम्र जुल्फों से उठाता है, ये सर किसका है, सूरह कैफ सुनाता है, ये सर किसका है, सूरह कैफ सुनाता है, ये सर किसका है।
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين وسي رسول الله، السلام عليك يا فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا إمام الحسن المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا إمام الحسين شهيد كربلاء، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر لحد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا حجة الله، السلام عليك يا إمام الرحمن، السلام عليك يا مولانا عنس والجان، عجل الله تعالى فرجه الأحيا وسهل الله مخرجه الأحيا وزهورك يا مولا، وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. Can I just have a request from everybody?
Can you hear me? I've just taken out the microphone. Can everybody
No,
hear me?
yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to request everybody to recite 5 times أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَ إِذَا دَعَا وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. And I just wanted to say the name of the sister. Just a second. For everybody who is might be suffering right now from coronavirus or anything else, and for Uncle Iqtidar Ali as well. And for just generally all mu'mineen right now might be going through some sort of big hurdle. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَ إِذَا دَعَا وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّن يُجِيبُ المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء 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 أَمَّن يُجِيبُ المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء. Jazakallah.
I would like to thank Mir Abbas Ali for reciting the beautiful Salam and the Noha. I would like to thank the Shaykh for outlining the definition of patience and giving us very clear examples of patience. I would like to thank Brother Afad for reciting the Ziyarats and the Quran. And I would like to thank everyone for attending today. I would also like to pray for Iqtidar Ali. May Allah cure him and all our brothers and sisters who are sick. May Allah give them all and their families patience, inshallah. May Allah help us and allow us to live our lives like Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. May Allah help us die on the same principles as Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Also, a small reminder, tomorrow is unfortunately our last lecture / majlis. And I would like to see everyone there, inshallah, your friends, your families, everyone, because tomorrow's topic is truly very interesting. And I won't tell you guys because I kind of want there to be a bit of suspense. And inshallah, we will all be there same time as usual. And it is our last lecture, unfortunately. And from me and all the organizers,